MyCore is on a mission to be the world's most people-centric company. The purpose of this podcast is to get to the core of people. I'm your host, Nathan Bourne, and I invite you to join me as we deep dive into the personal and professional lives of our guests. We're going to learn who they are, why they exist, and what they do. We're going to hear their stories, the good, the bad, and the ugly. In other words, we're going to talk to some really cool people. Welcome to the MyCore podcast. Hello. Welcome to the MyCore podcast. This is your host, Nathan Bourne, and I'm super pumped to be here with Samantha Doyle today. Hey, Samantha.
Hey, how's it going? I'm super excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks for taking the time to hang out with me and have a conversation. Excitingly, we were able to meet last week, over the last couple of weeks. I feel like I was living in Oregon. I was there for 12 days, I think, in total, and just into time differences and climate changes, and was everywhere. I feel like I've been all over that town, and I actually just got back here to Florida, to Jacksonville. I did not get back to my place until 4 a.m. So I'm a little tired, but I was like, we're not rescheduling this. I'm going into the office, going into the studio, and we're going to do the damn thing. And I'm pumped to talk about your story, talk about your journey, all the things.
Yeah, me too. I'm super excited. I am so glad that I got to experience you in person. I know we kind of tried to see if we could schedule this in person and didn't work out. But either way, I'm really, really happy to be here and get to chat with you even more.
Yeah, it was so cool to be able to have lunch, and then I love some of the content. There's this one little like clip of you and I just like walking through that one building, and I don't know, it just looks cool. It looks like we were, yeah. My social media manager Brittany has been putting it into some of the videos, and I don't know. I just think we look cool, if nothing else. Yeah, like,
I love it. It's great.
Yeah.
It's a cool space too, but we make it look even better. So there's that.
Right. We're filling the space. Well, I want to jump off and dive right into your story, and to give some context around kind of how you and I connected, and to start to low key promote the MyCore Collective and your involvement in it. Samantha is one of our speakers, which is a pretty exclusive thing. We wanted to really curate some of the best of the best, and rather than just try to, I don't know, throw them up on the stage and say, do your thing, we said, what if we built community around this? What if we met regularly? These are very busy people. They're movers and shakers. So it's quite a commitment to be meeting bi-weekly and have these speaker summits, as we're calling them. And it seems to be coming together. I've been getting some really great feedback. I was physically traveling yesterday, so I was not able to be on yesterday's, but it feels like each time we meet, the group of speakers, the group of leaders are more connected. They're more, I don't know, like transparent and vulnerable and like human even, while gearing up to come from these positions of strength to share their stories, their subject matter expertise, and really like bring great value to the audience, to the room. So naturally, that context got us talking about things like, hey, how did you end up in this industry? Or was there a moment in your life that you had like a day of decision, or what I've heard before, a day of disgust? And it could be something that like you did, like that was, damn, I got to change my life. Or it could be something that was part of childhood, or, just part of your journey. So we were kind of like teasing that out amongst our speakers, and I'm kind of sharing this with our listeners to give context. And Samantha shared this really cool story. By the way, Samantha, I meant to send this to you, but we were driving through one of the towns, I think Corvallis, and You recognize that sound? You're going to be
Yeah.
it's going to be very triggering for you when people hear the story. All of a sudden, Samantha just starts crying. It's like, what?
Oh, jeez. Everyone's like, what the heck are they talking about?
So there it is. It's like, Chris, it's a ice cream truck. And this thing
Yep.
was blasting. Like, it was, I could hear it with the window up. And I'm like, damn, dude. Rolled the window down as quickly as I could, snapped a video. I was like, I got to send this to Samantha. So I
Yeah.
will actually send it to you. But that's a little prompting there for you to tell us this story you shared about the ice cream truck, the ice cream man. Could have been a woman. I don't know. But yeah, over to you in the studio. Tell us a little bit about what you do currently, what your jam is, what your practice is, your profession. And then I'd love to hear this story from 11 years old that has been quite a through line in your life.
Yeah. So I'm the owner of Strategic Business Coaching. So I do strategy and coaching for business owners, and I focus in a couple areas. Really, you know, business owners that are kind of stuck in their day to day and want to transition from being owner led to team led in their organization. And then the other ones is growth through acquisition. I have a lot of experience in kind of the mergers and acquisitions world. And so I really like working with businesses that are growing through acquisition and then also on the exit as well, because those kind of go hand in hand. So those are kind of the three core areas that I focus on. And I'm a certified scaling up coach, which is one of the methodologies that I use, but I use a wide range of methodologies. And I have a lot of experience. I've bought and sold multiple businesses. And so that's kind of the primary gig that I have.
Yeah.
And so that's the gist of that. And then do you want me to tell the ice cream story
Yeah, I
as
just think
well?
it's such a cool informant, like
Yeah.
you look at a business. I mean, you're not in an industry that's not rare, right? You don't meet a lot of people that say, this is what it's a specialty, right? You specialize in this practice. It's something that, yes, you can go to school for and gather education, but it seems like the in the trenches, maybe school of hard knocks, just 10,000 hours, time in grade, on the job training, whether it was businesses of your own, which we can talk about as well, businesses that you've helped in this process and in this journey. But that's like big girl stuff that you're talking about. And then we ask this question, like how, why, when, where, and you say, well, I was 11 years old. And I find this story so compelling. So I thought it would just be a good like launch pad into your story and into our conversation today. So yeah, tell us
Well,
the
and as
story.
most people, there's obviously multiple stories throughout my life that have gotten me where I am, but this is probably the first one. And so my dad was an entrepreneur. My dad was a business owner. And when I was 11 years old, we lived on a cul-de-sac and the ice cream truck came down our cul-de-sac. And for anybody who lived on a cul-de-sac knows the ice cream truck never came down cul-de-sacs. So it was a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And so I ran to my dad and was like, Dad, please, I need the ice cream, please. And I started begging him, and he kind of was dismissing me, like, no, 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 you don't need it. So I went and got my brother, who was younger, and got him to kind of come along and start begging my dad. And we were like, please, 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 we need the ice cream. And my dad was always a very cool, collective, calm guy. And in that moment, he snapped. And he snapped and he said, we can't afford it. And he yelled very loudly. And this was very out of character for him. And I did not know this at the time because I was 11 years old. But we were very broke. And my parents, who owned a business, had moved their business into our home. They had multiple credit cards out, and they had an appointment with a bankruptcy attorney, and they had an appointment with a business coach. And the bankruptcy attorney had essentially told them there was nothing they could do. They needed to file, like it was a lost cause. And when they met with the business coach basically helped them strategize with price increases and a lot of different other strategies to get them out of the hole. And they never had to file bankruptcy, and they were able to get past it. And since then, my dad has always had a business coach. He's always had outside counsel. because he firmly believes in it. And, they were struggling. They didn't know what to do. They had so many credit cards out. And it felt like a lost cause. And this person was able to really pull them out of the hole. And so I tell that story because, being a business coach now, obviously I've learned a lot. I've bought and sold multiple companies, but I see so many business owners that are in that hole, or maybe they're not in that hole, but they're heading towards that hole. And I don't want anyone to struggle with that. Business ownership is so lonely. And a lot of people are doing it themselves. They're doing it alone, and they're not looking for outside help or outside perspective. And it doesn't have to be that way. And I want to help as many business owners as I can with, minor tweaks, minor strategies to really get them in a position where they don't have to have the business control their life. They have control over the business. And that's my biggest motivation.
That's so cool. Yeah, I loved hearing that story, and it has stuck with me. I'm, recording ice cream trucks in random towns, because it's top of mind for me. And I'd love to peel back some of those layers. I just have some questions.
Yeah.
Because at 11 years old, assumably you didn't have that experience and then start forming your business plan to
No.
right. You hadn't read Scaling Up at that point, right?
Oh, I hadn't yet.
Yeah. So those moments, like those core memories, sometimes they're good things that happen and you go, man, I want more of this in my life, or I want this for my children. Or they could be bad things that happen, that are like, I really never want to experience that again, or I never want to be the parent in that situation. And then sometimes in life, real deal trauma, the ugly can be so jarring that you sort of have a new set of characteristic or DNA in you. So did you, in that moment, was it a wake up call and maybe like a sun setting or a transition in what you might call like your childhood, like some innocence of sorts, like, oh damn, like I can't just go through the motions? Was it 20 years later that you looked back on it and realized that was a pivotal moment? Did your parents then continue to be transparent and say like, hey, this is the reality of it and we're going to navigate? I'm just kind of curious, like, assumingly you didn't have ice cream that day, right? didn't work out. So you were ice cream-less. And tell me like a little bit more about from then, that moment, until like you actually got involved in this industry and started like coaching and buying and selling companies. I'm just kind of curious of that journey, that arc.
So I did not, even though I remember that moment, I don't know that I realized how pivotal that moment was in the moment.
Yeah.
To answer your question. So
At 11 years old, that makes sense,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember it, but I think it was not until later. And even then, they didn't explain to me that day what was happening. Right. So I didn't find all of this out on that day.
Right.
I just remember that moment and kind of being confused, being like, what? We're broke?
Yeah,
like
what?
I don't
We
I
live in
didn't
a
know.
cul-de-sac.
What is broke?
Yeah.
I didn't know. And so, but I think that moment stuck with me. And then it wasn't until later on in life that it somehow came up, and I don't even remember honestly when that conversation happened. But not only did they turn around the company, but they grew exponentially. And my dad just sold the company to private equity for a very large sum of money. And so it was very successful.
And they
so
almost gave up, filed bankruptcy, threw in the towel. Wow. The same company or like just business?
Yes, the exact same company.
That's a super important detail. Yeah, that's.
Yeah, I guess I didn't add that part.
Well, that's amazing because you hear all the time, it takes 7 failures and I think a lot of the time people don't realize that you can have those failures like within the same company or within the same industry. You might call them setbacks or knockdowns or being right on the brink, but if we're calling them what they are, is it's like failure after failure after failure,
Fail forward.
failing forward, exactly, failing through. I mean, this has been my journey with my core. Is it's like I didn't quit my core; I kept it alive, but I mean, it took years and years and years to break through. And we're going to celebrate a 7-year anniversary actually in Eugene on October 2nd, which will be cool. But I had 3 years before those 7 years where it was a different entity, a different model, but I call it like my core 1.0. So really my personal journey, I'm coming up on 10 years. So when people are seeing some of the things that are happening, they're like, man, that's like an overnight success. And it's like, well, it was a long night, it was a decade long night, a lot of sleeping bags and slumber parties. So that's really powerful. Back to your story and your dad's story, that the very company that he sold, it sounds like for multi-millions, was the company that a stinking thinking bankruptcy attorney was like, yeah, you're screwed, man. But a coach showed him the way out. That's powerful stuff.
Yeah. And and so, I mean, you're right. And I guess I never even thought about the full circle part of that. But I didn't realize that at 11.
Right.
And my dad and I have always been very close, and we work together, and he's a business coach now. So we collaborate on a lot of things together, which is really nice. And we work really well together, which is awesome. And so, at some point we had the conversation about, well, what happened? I remember this, but what happened? And he told me more details about what happened. And this was probably when we were flipping businesses, or,
Right.
I don't know, because we were doing it together. And so I think that resonated with me. And he has always had a business coach. So I think even maybe before I knew that story, he talked about, well, we're meeting with the business coach. He was involved in the Small Business Development Center. So he was part of the SBDC, which was the business coach that he went to. And so that was something he'd went to, like, once a month. And so it was just kind of something I knew about, I guess.
That's cool. Yeah, I think there's so much wisdom there. Like, obviously, sometimes there's an element of business I find that feels random. Like, you might call it luck or fortune or favor. And then there's like not giving up, perseverance and hard work and smarts and ingenuity. And it's some weird synthesis, amalgamation, like just cluster F of those things that you kind of, it's kind of like that Ziploc bag of a woman's jewelry that is all tangled, that you're like, I don't know where the start and stop of this necklace is, and that bracelet is the worst, right? And you tell yourself, like, one day, someday, I'm gonna get that all sorted out, or I'm gonna find the way to, do it. It's probably best to just melt it down and sell it or something. But I think business is kind of like that, right? Like leadership is kind of like that, where you almost can't tell where the starts and stops are, or whether this had a direct connection to that, or this cause was that effect. So I'm curious, as a coach and as somebody that's like literally lived it from childhood, there's no guarantee, but having a coach, having somebody to like process with, I mean, it has to significantly increase the chances of success and manifesting the dream. I mean, maybe there are statistics around this, but I'm just curious your take on that. And I would imagine you're pro coaching, right?
Well, I mean, yes, I am pro coaching. I think it would be weird if I wasn't. A lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of business owners are visionaries. Like, they have the visionary mindset. They have the idea, or multiple ideas.
Right.
And they're not always good at focusing. And this is not the case for all business owners. There are ones out there that have the focus capability.
Right.
But I would say a large majority of business owners struggle with that piece.
Yeah.
And in order to be successful in business, you need to have both. And you need to be able to have the good ideas and have the brilliant thought of different ways of doing things and being different and having marketing strategies. But then you need to have the ability to focus on what is the most important thing. And I think that's one of the biggest things that a coach brings. It's not the only thing that I do, but it is probably the most important thing. It's saying, okay, what is your vision? What is your BHAG, your big, hairy, audacious goal, this 10-year goal that you want to be? How are we picturing it? What does it look like? And then breaking it down and saying, okay, what does it look like at 3 years? What does it look like at 1 year? What does it look like in the next 90 days? What is the one thing you're going to do in the next 90 days? If you're a small business, it's one thing. If you have a leadership team, okay, great. You can have 5 things, but no more than that. And business owners really struggle with this.
Yeah.
And so having a coach to not only help you break that down and have clarity on where you're going, but then keeping you accountable to those things. I mean, I have some clients that struggle with this so much that I only let them choose one thing for the next 90 days. And a month in, they have 7. And I'm like, no, you can't have 7. Something's got to give, because if everything's important, nothing's important.
Yeah.
But they struggle with it. And it's just part of their brain, because they're good entrepreneurs. They're good at creating these ideas and doing all these amazing things with their business. But the problem is that they get stuck. They get stuck because they're trying to do too many things at once.
Wow.
And then it's, getting into the details of the nitty gritty of how to actually execute on this stuff. Is it scalable? Do the finances work out? All of those things that kind of go along with implementing those ideas, essentially. That's the biggest thing that I find with working with people.
Very cool. So it sounds like people pay you to be beat up by you.
Yeah, sometimes.
Kind of.
Sometimes.
Right? But there's
kind about it.
Yeah, right. You're pleasant, but you're essentially calling them on their shit and saying like, hey, nobody has a gun to your head. Like, you don't have to do this. You don't even have to have this business. You could sell it. You could shut it down. You're good at a thing, or you are educated in that and this. Like, you could go get a job. You could work for your competitors. There's probably some like checkup from the neck up where you have to remind them who they are and why they're doing this. And not necessarily, obviously, I'm sure you're prospecting and working with high caliber people. So hopefully it's not just talking them off the ledge, the sky is falling all the time. Yeah, because
that's not the case, luckily. But
yeah, right. And it's sort of which came first, right? Like the entrepreneur that's investing in coaching is probably successful at some level and looking to go to the next level.
Yeah, but I'll give you a perfect example. I had a client that desperately needed to implement like a new software. Okay. And we were talking about it, and we analyzed which software, we decided on a software, we worked together to come up with this, right? And we're implementing the software, and we basically got to a point where he just needed to test it. We had done everything we possibly could. He just needed to do the damn thing. And it's a construction company. Just take a project and just test it. And he hadn't done it for a few weeks. And we're at a meeting, and he's like, I'm just tired of talking about this software. And I'm like, me too.
Yeah, you and I both. Yeah.
And he just kind of looks at me, and I'm like, you know what you need to do for us to stop talking about this.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, yeah, you're right.
That's funny.
In the next meeting, he tested it. We were done. We didn't talk about it again. And so I'm not telling him anything he doesn't know.
Right.
He agreed to this. He decided on it. I helped guide him there, but I didn't make the decision. But he just needed reminding that this is what you need to do. So, and he's a good friend of mine. I love working with him. It's great. So he kind of laughed afterwards. But sometimes they just need that, right? Yeah. It's like, look, this is the thing you have to do to move forward. And that's what business owners need sometimes, because they get scattered. They have so many things on their brain. I have so many things on my brain.
Right.
I get it. So.
Yeah, it is the conundrum between being a visionary, having ideas, just ideating, and then the execution of those ideas. What an interesting tension, right? And it is hard to, there's unique characters out there that were gifted with both of those things, but even so, one's going to be stronger than the other. You're not going to have a 50-50, ratio. So I'm curious because my default has always been to build teams. I think I do it better than most. If nothing else, that's what I try to do. Like I'm at least focused on it. And for example, you've probably even experienced a little bit through the preparation for our event, the MyCore Collective in Eugene, Oregon, September 30th, October 1st. Be there, be square. We're going to probably sell out, which is exciting. I think I saw somebody that just registered. Was that your father? It looked like your name was attached to it.
We had a couple people registered this last couple days.
You rock. So anywho, I have a team, an executive team, and that leadership team like does the thing. Like it's sort of almost a joke. Like, Nathan, what do you actually do? And it's like, I mean, like, let's fugazi, like, forget about it. And so I not only like have built a team, but I like pride myself on it and will like lean in as much as I can to like showcase that team and be like, hey, like this is squad goals. And even when I do things that are nitty gritty, and of course I do, right? There's just things that are part of a business that have to be done. My COO does so much, and I'm super thankful to him. But sometimes I gotta like sign something, or I gotta like fill out a freaking form, or just like unsexy stuff that you gotta do. That's not like podcasting and walking through the venue for the MyCore Collective, set to music. like that's the sexy stuff. That's like the fun stuff, right?
Yep.
But I'm just curious, like from your point of view, and I have thoughts on this too. I'm kind of framing it like I kind of know what I'm talking about a little bit too. But I want to hear from you, obviously. Like, how do you /we, because this is a big part of what we do, right? Like the whole idea of our two solutions, profit share and market share, people ops and marketing ops, is to build infrastructure and accompany it with a person that is not the owner, not the leadership team, not the people that should be focused at their highest and best use, right? But there is this chicken or the egg scenario, and I'm sure you deal with this in your line of business where people go, I know I need a coach, but I'm not making enough money for it. And it's like, well, actually, you're not making enough money because you don't have a coach, right? So I'm kind of curious how you help people navigate this, like, which came first, working in it or working on it, working in it or working on myself, because it's such an interesting intersection that is valid. Like, you could look at a person's books or their life or their cash flow and be like, yeah, you probably can't afford me right now. But then you're also like, but there's a reason you can't afford me right now. And I'm just curious how you do that, because in sports, there's typically a coach, right? Like, it's just hardwired in. Like, if you're watching a high school softball team or the professional, the National Football League, it's normal that there's a coach. And yet, as business people, we don't have coaches. Like, I don't know what the statistics are, but it's got to be like 9 out of 10 business owners don't have a coach. So I'm just curious, like your take on all that. I'm not sure I asked the question, but this is a conversation anyways.
No, there's so many thoughts that I could go from this. So I have a couple different approaches, and it really kind of depends on the situation that people are in. So when a business owner comes to me, I always do a free consultation, right? And I'm really trying to figure out what their biggest pain point is. And so if their biggest pain point is cash, and a lot of times it is, then that is immediately what I try and solve. And if it's cash, then they can't afford me, right?
Right.
I mean,
right.
that's just the reality of it. And so I offer a cash flow clarity workshop. And it's a 3-hour workshop. I do it for $1,500, and I basically do a financial analysis. And my goal in that workshop is to at least double the ROI of that workshop, minimum. And so I'm trying to find cash or profit or something in their books that they can get immediately. And so that is one of the approaches that I try almost every single time, especially if cash is an issue or a potential issue,
Right.
because not only does that help them immediately, but then they can, if they have an infusion of cash, then it's like, okay, here's the money for the investment to now fix all the other issues.
Right.
And so it's an easy ROI essentially, right? And so that's one of the things that I like to do.
And are
Now,
you talking like efficiencies, bloat, cost creep, lending, all of the above? Like,
all of the above.
okay.
It depends. And so this cash flow analysis that I do, it looks at their profit and loss, looks at their balance sheet. I'm looking for price, volume, cost of goods efficiency, overhead expenses that they can maybe cut. I'm looking at cash flow efficiency with their working capital. So whether it's accounts receivable, accounts payable, inventory, work in progress, maybe it's their process of collecting, like an
Right.
inventory process. Like, what is their cash flow process? And so, like, you know, I had a company that came to me, and he had previously been in manufacturing. And so I'm like, why is your accounts receivable so long? It was like 60 days or something. Well, he was giving everyone 45 days. And I was like, why are you giving 45 days? He's like, it's not just what you do. And I was like, no, don't do
No,
that.
actually. Yeah.
And so we came up with a plan to basically get all of his current clients down to 30 days, because it's going to be hard to go backwards. And all new clients were going to be due on receipt. And we even came up with like how the letter was going to be sent and like everything. And so that cash efficiency is going to, was going to drastically improve his processes like overnight, as far as his cash flow. And so anyway, so it just kind of depends on what their situation is, but we really dive deep into what is your situation and what is some immediate impact. Some of them, it's like, oh, they haven't raised their prices in 5 years. Okay, well, let's come up with a plan. What's the strategy, right? If you quote new projects every time, well, then just raise your prices, because it doesn't matter. You don't have to communicate to your clients because it's a new client every time.
Right.
So just raise your prices and just move forward. And we do an analysis on what's the percentage of clients you can afford to, or what is the percentage of volume you can afford to lose while raising your prices. So if you raise your prices by 5%, you can afford to lose 13%, and you'll be doing less work for more money.
That's powerful.
Right. And so we're able to do that with their numbers, to come up with an agreement and then come up with a plan and a strategy on how are you actually going to implement this. So I do a lot of that up front.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of other strategies that I use depending on their situation, but I would say that's probably the biggest one that I do is if cash is a question, if it's a concern, then I attack it first. That's the first thing that we try and solve.
And cash is king. So it's like, if we can, as you were sharing that, it took me back to multiple seasons of our journey where we had to just figure that out internally without any guidance. It was just like, middle of the night, wake up like, oh shit, yeah, we've been billing that wrong, or we've been, like, I mean, there's things I can, and hindsight, it's 2020, right? It's interesting. God made us great at history, but we're not so great at future, right? They don't say foresight is 2020, right? Like, we're awful at predicting the future. We're awful at knowing what's around the bend. And even just like being a leader, you are required to know what's around the bend. There's no guarantee, and everybody's sensible about the fact that you don't have a crystal ball. But I think leaders need to invest more energy in guesstimating, estimating, like predicting, being predictive, and going like, well, if we take what happened in the past and then we connect it to what's happening right now in the present, it's pretty likely that this will happen in the future. Mm-hmm. I think that that's a undervalued skill, that's something that you're not necessarily just born with. Maybe, there's personality traits and there's nature and nurture, but I think a lot of business owners, a lot of entrepreneurs are kind of just taking what was handed to them and saying like, oh, well, these are my skills. I'm good with numbers, or these are my skills. I'm good with process. And that's I think, important to stick to your strengths. Like I'm more of a like play to your strength, recruit your weakness thinker. But I think all leaders have to have some capacity for the future. And it sounds like coaching is such a great environment and like dynamic to be able to predict that, so that you can stay a chapter ahead of your own business. You could stay a chapter ahead of your competitors. So it sounds like after you take those initial assessments, you get into this sort of loop or dialogue or process of saying like, okay, let's talk about what we're going to make happen, not just like what happened.
Yes. Yeah. So essentially we do the analysis, look at where we're at, and then we make projections and we talk about, okay, what can we realistically do? Okay. So if we're going to do a 5% price increase, what does that look like? Okay. Can we also increase volume by 2% or 15%? Or, are we going to try and reduce our cost of goods by 2%, or, or whatever. And we can actually play with the numbers and see, well, what does that mean? What is that going to do for us? And the nice thing is that when we play with that, it actually shows them what the potential profitability is and what the potential cash flow is and what that increase, like, hey, if we can actually do all these things, this is what you're going to get at the end of the year. This is the improvement that you will get at the end of the year, which really helps too, because it's an investment for coaching, right? I know that.
Yeah.
But if I'm saying, look, if I can help you obtain this, and this is how much I cost, but this is what you're going to get. And what you're going to get is more than what I cost, right? If we can successfully do this.
That's awesome. Do you use like a platform? Like that kind of sounds like financial planning and analysis, or like,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's through the Scaling Up certification. So I have a platform that I use that I got through my certification, and it's a really helpful tool to be able to kind of show them. And it's all in graphs and colorful.
Yeah.
So it's really user friendly for the eye, I guess I can say. Yeah. And so it's been really helpful to be able to show that to people. But then we can literally play around with it.
Right.
And I asked them, I said, what's realistic? I'm not telling them.
Yeah, you were throwing out numbers like 2%. You weren't saying anything crazy. It's not like, if we increased everything by 10x.
Yeah, right.
It's not Grant Cardone type shit. You're like,
and sometimes it's negative, right? I'm like, hey, we're going to raise prices, but maybe we'll lose 2% of our clients. Right. And we'll put that in there.
I think that's super important. People, like we did this, we raised our prices and we barely lost. I mean, I think we lost a couple clients and they were on their way out anyway. It didn't have to do with the price. So that's a really interesting play. It's hard to do because you kind of are like, I don't even want to like have this conversation. Like I've got other things that I'm trying to advance the ball on. But even if there's churn from the increase ought to make up for that significantly, and it just nets out to be a super positive thing for your business. And that doesn't include the confidence that comes from it, the future clients, the value, the perceived value, the brand equity, like all the things. So
and that's the thing that the business coach helped my dad with that got him out of the hole. Was a price increase, a major price increase. Like, and my dad was so scared to do it because they were in a price war. And so they were in a price war going down. And the coach was like, you have to raise the prices. My dad's like, I'm going to lose half my clients. And he basically, and I don't remember the exact numbers, but he said, okay, let's do the math. You lose half your clients. We raise the price by X amount. This is what's going to happen. And the math turned out that even if he lost half his clients, he would actually make more money. Wow. And so my dad's like, okay, just let's do it. And so he did it, and he didn't lose half his clients. Right. He lost like almost none.
Man,
and that's what saved it.
That's a great kind of loop there on that. I love that. I had a question that came to mind, and it's kind of connected even to this moment that you're sharing. What are some of, or the most, like, there's like FAQs, right? Like frequently asked questions. I want to know, like, what are the frequently limiting beliefs that you find most in people? And it sounds like this one right here is like a self-worth, the price. And there's limits to this stuff, right? Like some people are kind of ridiculous and it's like, what? Like, why are you charging that for that? That's not even close. But I'm curious, like when you get into their head, whether it's prospectively or the people you're working with that have retained you, what do you see on a ongoing basis that are some of the most common limiting beliefs in people?
So the pricing is a big one. Another one that I find is that when a business owner is doing the work, you don't charge anything for that. That doesn't count.
Interesting.
That doesn't count, which I think is really interesting. Like that's not billable time because their salary.
Oh,
I
right.
found that more often than I realized at first. I was like, what is this? And I think it's just this concept like, well, I don't have to pay myself.
Right.
So that I don't have to charge someone for it. And so that has come up quite a bit, I would say.
Yeah.
A lot of it
I've
is
been
around
guilty of that for sure. Like, cause my commitment to the vision and the cause is just so disproportionate. Like, and I think there is an element of time and money where you're like, you're going to have to do some things in the beginning that you don't get paid for so that later you get paid for things you no longer do. So depending on where they are in that journey,
Yes.
they might be like, no, this is my sacrifice of time and energy. I'm not getting the money. But at some point that does have to convert to where you're like, no, your time is so valuable that highest and best is everything. And like for me, stepping into content creation, this very podcast, speaking, writing, creating, it's a weird animal because you can't really measure its immediate impact. But yet, if you give it the time to materialize, it can become rather lucrative. So you help people first mentally like recognize that no, your time is valuable. So that it's almost like they have again self-worth issues around their time.
Yeah, and then I think another thing is what not only what they should be spending their time on, but how many things are a priority. I think is another thing. Is they're like, no, all of these things have to be done this month, and I'm like, but are you realistically going to get them all done? They're like, yes. I'm like, okay. And sometimes, I mean, it's their company. I'm not going to tell them what to do.
Right.
And then we get there at the end of the month, and they get none of them done. And I ask, they're like, well, and they have excuses for why they didn't get
probably
done.
some good ones. They're probably pretty good at selling you. It's like, man, if
Well,
you
it was
sold,
the day-to-day.
what'd you say?
Right. It's the day-to-day.
Yeah.
The day-to-day got in the way, right? And I'm like, okay, I get that. That's fine. So let's set realistic expectations. And if all of these things didn't get done in the last month, it would probably be okay if 4 out of the 5 didn't get done in the next month. Because you went the last 30 days without getting it done. Let's just get one done, right? And it's really hard for some people to really, to do that. And, and we're talking a lot about some of the smaller businesses that I work with, but sometimes I'm talking to whole leadership teams too.
Right.
Right. And the whole leadership team will struggle with this sometimes. So sometimes I'm in a room and there's 5 people in here and we may not be talking about one project. We're talking about 10 things that they want to get done. Right. And I'm like, can we go down to 7? And so it's a different level of conversation, but it's the same conversation. Where it's like every department has 3 things they want to get done.
Right.
And it's like, I understand that you feel like all of this is important, but I'm promising you that if you try and do all 3 of these things, you're either not going to get some of them done, you're not going to get any of them done, or they're all going to be done poorly.
Yeah. I was going to say, you said that eloquently, poorly. I would just say, in Nathan's words, they're all going to be dog shit. Right? Like,
yeah, right. Yeah. They're all going to be dog
fire,
shit. Exactly.
like just ass.
Ass. Exactly.
Yeah, half. Yeah, not even half, like full ass.
I just, and I can't tell them all of these things.
You're not their
I can't.
parent. Yeah.
It doesn't mean that they're going to believe me. They have to live it a little bit.
No.
And so I think that's one of the things as a coach is sometimes you have to navigate the what do I tell them versus what do I let them experience.
Right.
And kind of, balance back and forth through that. And then the last thing I kind of want to mention that because I do a lot of acquisition, and I do a lot of the M&A and the exit planning and things like that. I'm dealing with a lot of people that are struggling with either exiting their business, dealing with a lot of people retiring
Mm.
or growing through acquisition. And so there's a lot of emotions in that. Like I'm dealing with, I have a client right now that I just got on, and it's a generation transfer. And I'm helping them transfer from the son or from the father to the son. And so there's a lot of limiting beliefs, in that space. I could go on and on about that, and I won't. But
Oh, right. Yeah,
it's an
that's
interesting dynamic, and I actually love doing that. And so, like in this scenario, sitting down with the whole family and just being like, "Well, what are you scared of?" To the dad, "What are you most afraid of that's going to happen?" And having that conversation in front of everyone, and having them actually have to have that conversation
so it
is
sounds like
very
you have
helpful.
some hard talks. Like you can get into some pretty tough.
But it's so much easier for them to tell me
Right.
what they're scared of, even if they're in the room,
Right.
than it is for them to tell each other.
Man, what do you think equipped you for that? Like, I don't know if do you have another ice cream truck story for that? You're like like
I,
to be able to have those hard conversations to be were you the peacemaker in your home, or like you seem to be able to like be pretty
so I
comfortable in
would
those hard combos.
Yeah, I would say maybe a combination of things. I mean, I've been working with business owners exiting since I think it was 2017 is when
Hmm.
we started doing this. So I have a lot of experience helping business owners with exits. But one thing I would say that is so I started my career as a trainer for Farmers Insurance. So I was a district trainer. So I did corporate training, and I was 25, I think,
Well,
24, 25 when I started there. And my job was to train, like we had 54 agents in our district. And my job was to basically take this stuff that corporate told me to train on and go train these agents who've been doing it for 45 years,
right.
right?
And
Sounds
you were
great, right?
25. Yeah.
And I was 25.
Yeah.
And so I learned very quickly that just walking in and telling them what to do was probably not going to work. And so instead, I took the approach, and I would go to Fred or wherever, and I'd say, "Fred, tell me your story. How did you get to where you are?" And I would listen, and I would let them just tell me all these things. And these old farmers agents would love to tell me their stories,
Yeah.
and I would just listen, and I would learn so much about them. And I would do that with all of them. And then eventually, what I could do is I'd like, you're struggling with this thing. There's another agent that had something similar happen.
Hmm.
And this is what they did. Is this, maybe you could do something like that? And that is how I kind of was able to help them, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Not because I came at them with all the knowledge. It was more like, hey, look, I'm talking to everyone. I'm able to share the wealth with everyone because I'm able to talk to everyone. And so I kind of had a way of just like listening
Yeah.
and asking questions and reflecting with them. And so even though maybe it's not a direct correlation, I feel like that really helped me be able to have those conversations with people.
Yeah, that's cool. I love that like cross pollinating of best practices and horror stories.
Yeah.
Um, Facts tell, stories sell, right? So like you were not just hammering them with the facts that corporate wanted you to deliver, but you were a listening ear, a strategist. You sat on the same side of the table as them. It sounds like you probably found, well, you guys are in the same industry and relatively similar markets. Like there probably were only a handful of problems, really, that when you boil it down, that would emerge. And then you just kept like pulling from this story to inspire that story and sort of making this mosaic. Um, that's really cool. So
Just like a collection of information that I can then regurgitate, which is honestly kind of what I do now. Like, I mean,
yes, well, you just sparked something in the language there that will become another shameless plug for our event. We we asked ourselves, like, what do we want to call this event? What's the purpose of it? Like, who are we targeting? Who do we want to attract? Who is the community? Why are we doing it? What, when, where, how, all those things. And where we landed was this idea of a collective, right? And thus the MyCore Collective. And it's like, how do we collect? How do we create this aggregate, this collection of great minds, great leaders, that can come together and share who they are and why they are, as I like to say, who I am, why I exist, and what I do, kind of in that order. But then, like, learn from mistakes, preferably other people's. So if Samantha can stand on the stage and share her story and weave in the things that she's learned from either her own mistakes or having talked to business owners that are fighting through each level and the mistakes they made at the previous level, like, that's insanely valuable, to be able to get that story, have that moment, internalize it, embrace it, apply it to your unique situation. And it seems like Main Street businesses in particular, local businesses, the community we serve, are in like these silos, and they're working so much in their business that it's hard for them to slow down and work on it. And that's why we wanted to kick off this event, both for the movers and shakers that are in the community, but also for our clients themselves and our the business owners themselves, to be like, okay, I need to take a breather and, like, really process how I got to this point and how's that going. Nothing fails like success, right? So it's that, like, even if you're succeeding, you can get stuck in your success because you have all these moving parts. And it's probably why your larger clients get a whole bunch of nothing done, because they're having to deal with the normal minutia of their business. And I'm kind of curious to, like, segue that into scale, because growth and addition and, like, upticks are not the same as scale. And I'd be curious to hear your take on this. I have a little, like, world according to Nathan on what I think scale really means. But I'll defer to you. Like, when you're talking to businesses about scaling up, what does that really look like? What does that mean? And what type of, like, insights do you need to, like, open in people's minds and unlock in their thinking for them to start thinking differently about their business?
Yeah. So the scaling up methodology, I'm going to explain this really quick because I think it's really helpful,
Yeah.
has 4 components, or 4 pillars.
Okay.
It's people, strategy, execution, and cash. And they call them the 4 decisions because the business owner needs to make decisions in all 4 categories.
Wow.
And the reason I bring that up is because you really need to make sure that your company is set up to scale in all 4 categories. And so one of the first things that I do is we talk about the vision of the company. We talk about what it looks like in the future, is we talk about the scalability of the company. Is what does it look like in the future?
Right.
And so when I talk about scalability, it's basically growing in such a way that you're saving money, right? Or saving inefficiency. So I'll use people, for example. We create, like, an accountability chart, like a visual accountability chart, right? We create a scalable model on the accountability chart so that we can visually see, like, if it's a team with a lead or whatever it is, that, hey, if we're going to 10x this company, how does this visually scale? What does it look like on a 10x model? So that they can visualize it. Because a lot of people are visual. I'm a very visual person. And so how does it visually look? And then what is the cash flow behind that? Right? Because that's the people portion. What's the cash flow behind that? Because if you can visually find the people and the scalability of the people so that you're saving, you kind of have less people to do more work as it grows. That means less cash to do more as it grows. Okay. Which means you can execute and then execution, right? How can you execute more as it grows? How can you and how can you strategically grow all of it or scale all of it? And so it's really a combination of all four of those areas. But when you're just growing, and I really like the concept of the 10x is easier than 2x, because I think it aligns really well with it.
Yeah, we
Because
talked about that at lunch. I thought that was awesome.
yeah, because if you're going to double your company, your mindset goes to, well, I'm just going to have to work twice as hard.
Right.
But if you're going to 10x your company, you have to redevelop all of the processes to work differently. And that is what scaling is in my mind, is that it has to work differently.
Yeah.
If you are a $2 million company, or let's say a $1 million company, and you want to grow to a $2 million company, you're
more.
like, okay,
yeah, like
I gotta work harder.
Yeah.
But if you're a $1 million company and you're going to grow to a $10 million company, you're probably going to have a different software.
Right.
You're probably going to have totally different people working for you. You're going to have a different marketing strategy. You're going to have, it's going to be totally different business. And so that's how you have to be thinking when you're scaling.
Yeah.
And so you almost have to design that in the vision. What does it look like as a $10 million company if you're a $1 million company? And then what is the small steps that you can make to start to implement those scalable models, essentially?
Oh, that fires me up. And that speaks very directly to really both of our solutions, but particularly the people ops one, and we help our clients reimagine, redesign, architect the people operations of their business. And it's amazing to see, especially even at some larger numbers. Like, you use that simple math, but it's like, they could be at $10 million and it's like ass. Like, you're just like, wait, what? You're still onboarding people this way? Or this is the way that time tracking is handled, or, PTO is tracked, or it's pretty remarkable how, like, adrenaline, especially older companies, because they're, that was then and this is now, and they've been doing it this way for 30 years. Mm-hmm. And they just sort of got there, because of work, just work. But hard work is not how you become wildly successful. I mean, that's part of it, right? But it's think and grow rich, not do and grow rich, right? So you're really getting into their psyche and inspiring new neural pathways to say, like, hey, in the short term, it'll be painful because you'll have to form new habits, and that's always fun, right? But the trajectory and the freedom that can come from this, the juice will be worth the squeeze. So I imagine you're what percentage would you say is mindset in your practice, in your work?
I would say at the beginning, it's a lot of it, right? The initial mindset, well, it kind of depends on the people. I would say some people come in and they have a pretty good mindset.
Right.
They just need the execution, right? And so, but then for those people, it's a little bit less mindset, and we really just need to get executing, right?
Yep.
And then later on, they get stuck.
Yeah.
They get stuck, and we got to go back to the mindset. Whereas, and I almost say this is 50-50 in the clientele that I have, versus the other half of my clients, it's like almost all mindset for a little while, right? Like, they're really stuck on the mindset. They don't really understand. They're not really sure how to push through. And so those clients have a lot of mindset up front.
Yeah.
And then once we're able to get through the mindset and they're like, oh my gosh, I see it. I understand it. I believe in it. Those types of things, then it kind of flips. And so those are kind of the two different types, I would say, that I have experienced.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that. I mean, we have a formula talk about in our academy, but it's mindset plus skill set plus tool set equals asset. And just this idea, right, that, like, if you're building this scalable asset, it's going to take a certain mentality. You're going to have to know what you're doing. And then like you were talking about with implementing a new software, a new tool, like there's going to have to be change management around that as well. So that's helped me kind of take inventory, and if I feel like there's some stinking thinking or a blind spot in myself, I don't always have the answers, right? Like hindsight again, I'll go like, damn, I was like thinking about that way wrong, and sometimes it's not even just like thoughts, it's like feelings, right? It's like we call it mindset, but it's probably more like heart set or something, right? Like your
Yeah.
heart is set a certain way because of, again, maybe an event in your life or something that was jarring to you or traumatic, and you don't even realize that it's informing all these things, and it could be around size and scope and impact, and you're having this limiting belief. The other thing I have found is that the people you surround yourself with, you will become the average of, and that's hard. That's hard if you have people that are maybe more interested in knocking you off your perch than building you up. And the level of confidence that it requires to break through, it's kind of wild sometimes. Like I'm not a super shy guy, and I feel like I'm generally confident, but even I'm like, damn, I gotta just be bold in this right now, or like confident. And I don't know, like this event again, like I'm like, shit, I think a bunch of people are coming, like, but you have to like gauge and regulate, and then you have to also do the work. Like you have to do the work up to that moment, which is what we've been doing with the speakers and what we've been doing with, I mean, I'm tired as shit right now because I got home last night, and with the time difference and the travel and a delay, I didn't actually make it to my place till 4 a.m. Right. So I'm like pretty darn tired right now. But what I accomplished in those 10, 12 days in Oregon, like, makes a huge difference. This very conversation would be very different if we hadn't met in person, hadn't gotten together, hadn't spent time together. So anyway, it's sort of like that sometimes too. And I think that actually is where the work comes in, right? I mean, one of our core values is lead with who, and it has all kinds of application. And I'm going to just, during my moment at the My Core Collective, I'm going to unpack that. I do want to ask you here in a moment what we can expect if you've started to crystallize your topic. I know you've shared a little bit of that. But anywho, it's also like not just like lead with who, but like who do you lead with? Like who is that inner circle? Who are those people you're surrounding with yourself with on a given day? How many conversations are you having? And if you're in the group chat a lot and you're talking about like fantasy football, like bruh, like don't don't be surprised when you're not going to the next level, when the majority of your conversations are with people that are lesser than where you are. Not that they're lesser people, but they said they don't have what you want. And that's something I've always tried to be conscientious of like, no new friends. Like I'm good. Like I got enough friends, I got enough family, I got enough kids. Like I'm looking for people that elevate, as I think Drake put it. So anyway, I was curious your kind of take on that, because I think having a coach, being around movers and shakers, being in a room for a couple days like we're putting together in Eugene, September 30th and October 1st, creates those moments where you have these mental breakthroughs. And you can't just have them. I mean, maybe you're listening to this podcast driving right now and it's just earth shattering and you need to pull over to the side of the road and like just take a moment. But I have found that live events in community, when you like break up the normal routine of your life and go intentionally for 48, 72 hours, is where a lot of those ahas that stick with you. So I would imagine you're trying to create those moments with your clients as well, right? Within the
Yeah.
minutia and like rhythm of their life and business.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. And when I first started doing this, I was traveling a ton.
Mm.
And the reason I was traveling a ton is because I firmly believe in doing this in person as much as possible.
Yeah.
And the structure that I have is I do all day strategy days. And so I am with my clients all day,
Cool.
once a quarter. And so I was flying a lot. I've been trying to focus a little more locally, for the sake of not traveling as
Yeah,
much.
right. It's a
And
grind.
so,
Yeah.
yeah. And so, but I still fly to some of my clients. And
And when
I
I
think
saw
that,
you, you were headed up from Eugene to Portland
mhm,
to do just that, right? Weren't you having
yep.
an execution or executive like coaching day?
Yep. And so I still do that. And so I do all day strategy days with my client. I also have some of my smaller clients. I do group sessions. And so for example, I did a 4-hour workshop with 6 different business owners where we basically accomplished,
Yeah, yeah.
having them come up with what is their vision for their company 10 years from now, and break it down all the way to the next 90 days. And they were able to come up with what is the number one goal for the next 90 days. And it's so powerful to do that.
Yeah.
And the difference between a one-on-one session all day and a group session is that with a one-on-one, we go deeper, right? We go much deeper. We get more clarity. We go through the people, the cash, the strategy, the execution, right? Whereas in a group one, it's a little bit more condensed, but you get the dynamic of everyone, which is an added benefit too, right? It's just different. And so I think that for the MyCore event, first of all, I am so excited about this event because of the buildup that we've had, the anticipation of meeting all of these speakers. I mean, I've now met you in person. I've met a couple of the speakers in person, and I've never experienced this with any other event that I've been a part of,
Wow.
where I get to know the speakers ahead of time. And I am so excited that I feel like we're all putting this on together.
Yes.
I mean, it's not just MyCore. I mean,
Oh,
we are all a part of MyCore.
you get me
And
fired up, Samantha. Yes,
I
this
know
is what I'm.
it's fantastic. But I think that you're right. I mean, an in-person experience is it's, especially since COVID,
Mm,
I think it's actually like exponentially more important because we were so like stuck in our home for so
right.
long. and and now we're like craving it. And I think that having those types of events where you're around people who are like-minded with you, and you're creating this space where we can tell stories that are deep. I think that's something else people are craving, is people are over the surface level stuff. They don't want that anymore. They want to go deep. And I'm really excited that you're creating the space for that, specifically for the movers and shakers, the entrepreneurs, the business owners. Because honestly, I think they need it more than anyone else.
Oh,
Um,
right. Isn't that ironic too? It's like just you're getting me fired up because this is like the vision coming to fruition, and it's not. I mean, it's been years in the making, just for the capability to be able to do it and pull it off, and the quality of people like Curtis and Susan Marie and Laura and just the team. My leadership team, my executive team. I obviously am biased, but I just think they're the cat's meow, or the cat's pajamas, the bee's knees. So, and it's not like because they give me freedom and I get to go put my toes in the sand. Like I work harder than most human beings, I just do. Like I always have, probably always will. It is how I'm wired. It has a lot to do with my childhood trauma and the bear's always chasing me. So no amount of money. I was, this probably says something in and of itself, but I'm traveling last night. I'm on a pretty long plane ride, like 4 or 5 hours from the Pacific Northwest. And I watched The Greatest Showman because I love that movie. And I was just getting fired up, watching the movie. And that one singer who it kind of goes sideways, kind of a sad part of the story, but she sings that song, Never Enough. And she's like, never, never, and I'm like, damn, I don't like this, but I kind of can relate to that, when I hear those sentiments or notions. I remember in the movie, I think it was Wall Street. They redid the Wall Street movie with Shia LaBeouf, and he's up and coming. And then there's the guy that is like the main dude, and he asks him like, "What's your number?" Kind of like when you get off the elevator. Is it at 1 billion? Is it at 100 million? And he answers him more. And I'm like, oh man, am I that way? Cause I don't ever stop, like can't stop, won't stop. It takes a lot for me to unplug and to decompress. My children get me to do that because I have those moments where I'm like, just they're fleeting, and I'll look at those pictures and say like, oh my God, 2 years ago my daughter was 10 and now she's 12 and she looks totally different, and from 12 to 14 and 14 to 16 and 16 to 18, and then oh my God, she's not, it's just like that, how
Yeah.
precious that is.
Mm-hmm.
So I would imagine in your coaching, there's a lot of conversation that weave into their personal lives, and how's the marriage going, how's your
Yeah.
spiritual walk, how's your health, like dude, you got to move your body more. I mean, this traveling's been kicking my ass. I hurt my knee and then I started traveling. I mean, I'm in the like most atrophied, like worst shape that I've been in a while. And that's been challenging, but challenging for me. So there are sacrifices. There's things you got to do, right, and you got to counterbalance it. But I think this event it's not a one-off. It's not something that we're just going to do once. In fact, and I think you'll be stoked to hear this, being where you are in the country, we're looking at like really focusing on the Pacific Northwest and saying, okay, where's our next event? And we're looking at like 6 months out, so like the spring. And then how do we do a bunch of pop-ups between now and then? So we're kind of starting to frame out this idea of like my core collective pop-up, where instead of it being 2 full days and 15 different speakers and staying in the hotel, it's like, how do we go to a cool venue and have a nice evening, where maybe we're there from 4 p.m. to 9 p.m. and we cover some content, socialize, cover some content. Because I think in that model, we could really connect with the market in a significant way and then funnel all that to a big event where, like the speakers are experiencing this connection and this culmination, I want the attendees to feel that same way too, where they're like, oh, I actually went to all 6 of the events leading up to this, and now it's the crescendo of it. So that's what we're kicking around as an executive team. It's fresh on my mind. We talked about it during our whole meeting this morning. So
I love that
it's kind
idea.
of cool, right?
Yeah, I think that sounds awesome. And I think that, just kind of to back up just for a second, because you were talking about the personal
Yeah.
side, and the personal side of business ownership when I'm working with someone one-on-one comes up all the time. I mean, like I have a husband wife. I actually have 2 different husband wife
Wow.
owners that I work with, and that comes up all the time, right? And you can imagine what it's like to work with them, and they're very different couples.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
even that alone is very different. One of them has a very good work-life balance, and the other one, I would say, maybe not as much. And so it's different types of conversations. But there's those types of conversations that have to come up, and even I open up with them, right? And so I'm able to divulge things with them and talk to them. I'm a very open book, and so I struggle too, right? I'm human.
I was gonna say, you're a person, you have a business, you have a
I have 3
family. Yeah.
kids. And so, you talk about the never enough. I have that too.
You do? Okay. Yeah.
Oh, 100%. And
Never, never.
my mom is a perfectionist.
Yeah.
I love her.
Yeah.
She is a
Yeah.
perfectionist, and I got a little bit of that from her for sure. Where I'm like, well, I'm going to show her, kind of, I'm going to show them.
Yeah. I've
And
like,
so,
but thought about this like in jest, but I think this is actually what we're building. If it wasn't called My Core Collective, I think we would call it like EA, Entrepreneurs Anonymous, because I think we're just low key like a support group for psychos that have chosen business instead of jail, because like I just want to stand up and be like, hi everyone, I'm Nathan and I'm an entrepreneur, like, so.
I mean, I think everyone knows me. Honestly.
Seriously, like that we have AA, we have
We all
NA,
have a chip. We all have a chip. It may look a little different, but
right?
it's all
I'm an addict for sure, like
yeah.
Workaholics Anonymous For
Oh,
sure.
it's so true. And it's funny, I'm especially building my company, and I bought a leadership development company last year. So I'm like building two companies right now.
I remember you
And
saying
so
that. Right.
yeah, and so there's a balance, right? And it's so funny because I joke around with my clients. I do this all the time where I'm like, they joke that saying the chefs don't like to cook at home and
Right. Right.
things like that. Just do as I say, not as I do, right? Because there are things that I am coaching my clients on that I absolutely
Not
suck at.
doing.
And I will admit that. I absolutely admit that. I did my own strategy day, and I hadn't done it in 6 months.
That's
I'm
awesome.
like, I need to like take my own advice for sure.
You're probably
And
in
so,
sessions with your clients where you're like, shit, I really need to do this.
yeah,
Like,
oh, 100% that happens. I'm like,
yeah.
I'm like preaching. I'm like, yeah, no, you got to do this, and then I'm thinking in the back of my head, like, oh yeah, I haven't done that in a while either.
Right.
And it's just the reality. And the problem is that I also need a coach, and right now
Right.
my dad is my coach. And unfortunately, he is not as strong with me as I need him to be.
Right.
So I'm actually looking at having another coach because I also believe in having a coach. And as much as I love my dad, I don't know if he's the right coach for me.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting? That's
It is
funny.
interesting.
Yeah, I've actually thought about that a little bit too, like kind of under the umbrella of our academy, like more mastermind, because I'm in an organization that is a peer advisory group for Christian CEOs.
Uh-huh.
And there's a chair to the group. So there's a facilitator who is like the leader. But the material that we go through, um, it's built on a model called BAM, which is business as a ministry. So essentially, we're like checking in on like our spiritual growth, the way that the company honors God, and then like very tactical, like MBA level material. And it's been transformative for me. Actually, are we in August? Yeah, I'm 3 years. Yeah, I've been with the organization for 3 years. Yep, and it's changed a great deal. My cursing hasn't gone down much, but other than that, yeah, I'm doing
Small
much
wins,
better.
small wins.
Yeah, just little incremental, gains. So yeah, sometimes I'll say frick and just be like, "Hey, I'm doing better." Like I'm replacing. So on the stage in Eugene,
Yes.
September 30th and October 1st. I don't know where in the agenda you are yet, but one of those days you'll be rocking it. Tell us a little bit about what you'll be covering and how you're starting to crystallize your thinking.
Yeah. And I think I sent the title to Susan Marie, but I cannot remember what it is off
Cool.
the top of my
Oh,
head.
it's clever. Yeah.
But but basically what I'll be talking about is growth through acquisition
Love that.
as a marketing strategy.
Ooh.
And so, something that I have done personally, and I have now worked with other clients to do, is to grow through acquisition. Whether it's a competitor, whether it's the same industry in a different location, growing geographically, or it's a vendor, or if it's a customer. There's multiple different ways that you can grow through acquisition. But one of the things I'll be talking about is that we're in the largest generational wealth transfer in history right now. And there are so many baby boomers that are business owners. Like a huge percentage of them are business owners, and those businesses need to go somewhere. And so I'll be talking a lot about the opportunity that is available for business owners right now, and that it may not be quite as hard as you think it is to acquire another business. Even if you're a small business owner, there are options, lending options, or owner carry contract options. And I've done it. I actually purchased a welding equipment repair company, merged with another business, and then sold it. And I did it all without spending a dime of my own money. So
Yeah, this is
I
exciting.
it happened.
Yeah, I will be sitting in that session front row, taking copious notes like I did today, where I wrote down people and cash and strategy and execution,
Mhm.
particularly because this is something that I've been gearing up towards. In fact, part of my trip to Oregon was with Curtis's son-in-law and daughter, because he's been kind of window shopping and researching and like deep diving on a number of businesses that he is looking to acquire. And it's a pretty cool story because they've been able to create um, a, a significant amount of cash because of her creator business. So she has these really cool cats that are the Sphinx ones. Yeah, like at first I just thought they looked like ball sacks, but as I got to, because they do, but as I actually met Marshall, the kind of main character in her content, and it was pretty majestic, dude. Like I was like, oh, I felt like I met Pharaoh or something. That was like warm and actually, there's a reel that Brittany just shared with me to approve. I need to look at it again, but it looks awesome, and it's kind of a recap of my trip. Again, I think we're walking through that that venue together. But one of them, I'm holding the cat and kind of like making this crazy face because I'm like, this cat is like weird. But they're warm. They're like super warm. Like not like, oh, this cat's kind of cozy. I mean, like a heated blanket or something. Anyway, that I digress. But so he's kind of in a moment in his life where he's like, okay, I want to do this, I want to look into this, and we've been kicking around the idea of partnering on that. So we went surfing in the coldest water ever. I was like, this is insane. Like this, welcome to Oregon, right? Freaking August with full wetsuit, hoodie, booties, and kind of sat on the boards and talked it out and are in conversation around that. So I'd love to pick your brain more because there's some opportunities that I think acquiring and then implementing my core services from like the executive managerial standpoint, as well as the people ops, the marketing ops. We've built a solution or solutions that are a big part of what companies need to scale and to grow. And so I'm starting to play in that space and tease that out a little bit. So I'll have to pick your brain more on that and keep you abreast to some of the opportunities. But I'm really looking forward to having people be able to learn that in the My Core Collective. I think that'll be a nice kind of special part of the agenda that I don't think anyone else is going to be hitting on. I don't know that anyone else has that expertise in our speaker lineup. I think that might be uniquely you.
Yeah, I'm really passionate about it. I'm really excited about it. And I think it's going to be something that that'll really add some value to the MyCore. And along with all the other speakers, I'm so excited about all the different speakers and the quality of these people that you brought together is just
it's humbling, right? Yeah, like
yeah, it really is. It really is.
Talk about imposter syndrome. Like
I know.
like,
I feel so so lucky to be a part of this group. So I really appreciate you having me and I'm so excited. I am so excited for the event.
It's going to be amazing, and I know that you're kind of holding it down, being like literally you live in Eugene, right? So
I do.
there's
Yes.
I think Jason's close, and obviously Andrew's close, and Curtis and Susan Marie, but you're like in the heart of it. Also, it was super exciting to meet Rob, super cool guy, and we're doing this speaker summit at the speakeasy that is in the building where his business is, and he's been facilitating all that and just being great. So hopefully we'll have a good reach. I have a question for you, and then we can also clip it as a soundbite. Tell our listeners, particularly those in Eugene, why they should be at the My Core Collective. Obviously, you've never experienced the event before, but you've been coming along as a speaker. You know what you're going to bring to the room, and I just would love to hear your hot take on why somebody would come to that event and invest the time, energy, and money.
Yeah, I think that anyone who is an entrepreneur, a business owner, or what'd you call it? I was going to say a mover or shaker.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
It's hard to peg it, but it's like, look, if you're on the move, if you're doing shit, if you got big stuff popping, little stuff stopping, like let's go.
An entrepreneur, business owner, mover, shaker in Eugene, I think you're going to want to be there because not only is there going to be amazing speakers, there's going to be amazing content, but it's going to be the place to be. There's going to be collaboration, there's going to be community, and there's just going to be this sense of community together. And I think that that is what business owners need. That is what these people need. And I am so excited to have this community in my hometown, to have this community built around it. I'm going to be inviting everyone that I know, that I think needs to be there, which is most of the people that I surround myself with, which is great. And so I'm really, really excited for this event and for you to be back in Eugene, Nathan.
Yes. Yeah. I'm pumped too. And I'm going to be down there, or out there, I should say, like out there and then down there, from like the first week of September. So I'm actually coming out for the Bloom Together event with Ellen Yin.
Yes.
So I'm going to, I mean, it's really
Super
only a couple
exciting.
weeks from now. I'm going to be back there in like 2.5 weeks I won't be there as long, but about a week. So I'm planning on getting back on site, getting content again. I've got some pretty silly content that I don't know. I was just having a moment, but I captured, and we were going to be like pushing out. So it's like all systems go, all roads lead to Eugene, and that top floor where we're doing the event is just like money, dude. And it's going to sell out. There's no way we're going to be able to fit everybody. So I think we're about halfway sold out. And I just know how people are. They wait to the last minute. And I've had a lot of people like, yeah, I'm totally going to be there. I'm like, well, you better get your damn ticket or you ain't going to be there. So
I'm putting my marketing out.
yeah.
I have an event in town next Tuesday. I'm going to be telling everyone about it.
Awesome.
So if people don't get their tickets now, then all of my friends will be taking all the tickets.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good point, right? Especially because you can go almost to the 11th hour, right? It can be like, what are you doing tomorrow? Like it's not as hard for people that live in the area because they can make that decision in a jiffy. And
Yep.
and also the price is going up. I think it's going up by $100 on September 1st. So
Yeah.
now's the time to get it. But cool. Well, look, I have enjoyed this conversation with you, just like I did in person, and I learned a lot. I think our listeners will be stoked to just kind of get their mind working on, if nothing else, like just lean into the resources that are available for your development. Whether it's having a specific coach that you're working with. And by the way, if you're somebody that says, I dig that Samantha Doyle girl, I want to maybe work with her. Well, reach out. We're going to put all of her, links and contact information. Obviously you can send me a message too, and I can happily connect you. But any final thoughts for you, Samantha, or from you, I should say?
Thank you so much for having me. I loved our conversation in person. I loved this conversation. I feel like I could talk to you for hours. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
There were like things as we were talking. I was like, we could go deep on that. I'm like, all right, we'll do another episode. So there's some other things I'm working on podcast wise, by the way, because this was one of the more tactical conversations I've had on the My Core podcast. A lot of it's like, I feel like I'm Oprah sometimes. So I'm going to reach out to you about that. Have Laura reach out to you. Because as we kind of start to compartmentalize a little of our content, I'd like to get into this even more, particularly around the mergers and acquisitions. So we may have to do another episode and just like super dedicate it to that.
Totally down. Sounds great.
Awesome. Well, thank you for your time. It's great to see you. And I'll see you in a few weeks at the My Core Collective.
Sounds great. See you then.